Hello there, welcome to the next session, the continuing part of our Assertive Communication program. As I mentioned in the past segment, there are different behaviours. We have passive through to aggressive through to assertive behaviours. And perhaps one way of knowing whether you express any of these behaviours is to find out what your personality type is. It may be that you already know your kind of personality, and there are indeed many ways of assessing different personality types through lots of different questionnaires and assessments that are available. But to make things simple for this particular program, we're going to look at the 6 personality types in a very simplified way, and in a way that is a little bit of fun, so it's easy to understand what we're talking about here. There are basically 6 personality types that we'll go through, and they are defined here in this slide by, as we can see on the left, a figure about a little animal called a hamster. Hamsters are like a little guinea pig, we say, and they're a cute little animal. Next we see below them are a pair of hands, and we call these invisible beings. We can't see who owns the hands, so the person is rather invisible. Next we have a dog, a pit bull, a kind of dog that is rather a dangerous, aggressive dog. Next we see the symbol for dreaming people, and here there's a fellow lying back in his bed, very comfortable. Next we see a baby crying, who is a whiner. When someone whines, it means they cry and whinge and moan. And finally, we see someone who is mute, who doesn't really say very much, who has no real communication ability. Let's start with hamsters. The personality type or behavior of a hamster means that they do good work and they get respect, but they get nowhere. They don't really progress when it comes to career advancement. They're busily sort of doing things, and they wonder actually where all their efforts really go to. They may be assertive for the organisation they work for, but when it comes to standing up for themselves, they're very shy. They're very hesitant to stand up. They're very small. They regard themselves as rather little in comparison to the rest of the organisation. So hamsters tend not to be very, very assertive when it comes to moving forward and achieving goals. Invisible beings. They do good work, but nobody knows it. We can't really see them. We can see their hands and the good work, but we can't see who they are. They are unassertive. They let other people take credit for their achievements, and that leaves them behind the scenes. We never really get to know who those real good workers are because we never see them. And so therefore they are unassertive. They let other people take all the credit for all the achievements. Pit bulls. Here we have people who have the personality type that is overly aggressive, and their aggression gets in the way of their success at work. They may be good workers. Let's not forget that. They could be very, very good workers indeed. But the disruption and all the tension and stress that they cause and create makes them very disliked amongst their co-workers and puts them on the defensive. They like to fight because they know people are not very happy with them, so they tend to become very, very aggressive and pushy. Then we have the dreamers. Here, daydreaming, if this is a personality type that you have, you are a daydreamer. You show lack of self-control and it keeps you from advancing. Work that you eventually finish is acceptable, but this lack of focus that you have indicates that you don't really care very much, or you don't have very strong consideration of yourself, or you lack esteem, self-esteem, or value about yourself. Whiners. These people are constantly complaining about what they don't like, and they expect others, however, to speak up and change the situation for them. These are also whingers, we call. These people expect others to stand up and say things rather than themselves. They do nothing to bring about the change. They always just complain. So we have the whiners. And then we have the mutes. These people have problems with saying no. And for that matter, they have problems with saying anything at all. They take everything that's given. They are yes people. They follow. Whether they like it or not, they don't stand up for who they are. They don't stand up for what they like or don't like. They are very, very passive, and this kind of behaviour makes them overworked and stressed because everybody gives them everything to do. So we have these 6 different personality types. Perhaps you might fit into one of these areas. In a nutshell, these are very, very simple explanations, and there are much more in-depth explanations as to personality types. But just so to make things simplified for this particular program, we've highlighted them in that way. So which one are you? A hamster? Are you invisible? You do a lot of things but nobody knows you're there, you're so unassertive. Are you a hamster that you work so hard and so feverishly that you never seem to get anywhere because you can't really stand up and express yourselves and say, hey, look what I did? Are you so aggressive that you disrupt everything around you and the people around you? Are you so away and you're caught up in yourself and you're daydreaming that you have no self-control to get up and do things, no self-esteem that you want to make a name for yourself and believe in yourself? Are you constantly whinging and expecting other people to change things rather than standing up and speaking correctly and doing things in the appropriate way? Or do you have a problem with not saying much at all, that you just let everybody walk all over you, and so you don't really express yourself very much at all? You accept everything that comes your way. Let's take a look here, now that you know a bit more about yourself, the 9 different types of responses that are assertive. Different types of assertive responses. You can disagree in both a passive and active way, depending on the situation. This can be an assertive response. The fact that you are disagreeing, of course, means that you are starting to stand up and say what you think. And whether you say that in a more passive way or in a very active manner, it does depend on the situation. But the fact is that you have started to disagree, and that is starting to assert your feelings. Another assertive response is that you can always ask for answers when you have questions regarding any issues, even when it's with a person of authority. You can always ask for answers. You can always ask. So asking is a way of showing assertive behaviour. Next, you can let other people understand more about you. Let them share your thoughts and experiences. So share your thoughts and experiences. This is being assertive. So here on this page we say, disagreeing is being assertive. Always asking is being assertive. Sharing your experiences with others is being assertive. Being reasonable when you are in discussion with others without letting them dominate the interaction, that is being assertive as well. Saying no, that's a good step to start to do, to say no if that has been a problem for you. Always looking directly into the eyes of the person you are talking to is being assertive. So here we see these 3 assertive responses. Being reasonable, trying to be understanding. Saying no is a good first step to being assertive. And always looking at people's eyes, their eye contact, that is assertive behaviour. And finally, accepting compliments graciously. without feeling embarrassed and going all silly and coy and depreciating yourself. That is being assertive. Accept them graciously. Say thank you. Thank you, that's very nice of you to say that. I feel that, yes, I did a good job in that project as well. That is being assertive. Being friendly and sincere and letting people get to know you more, especially when you don't really know them very well. That is being assertive, showing sincere friendship. And insisting on being treated fairly and justly. That is being assertive. Never letting other people take advantage of you in other respects. So insisting on being fair, insisting on just treatment, that is assertive behaviour and an assertive response. So let's look at your workplace. If you are assertive at the workplace, if you are, then you do your job very well while maintaining your rights and fulfilling your responsibilities. You are working along in a very good fashion, in a very effective way. Don't worry if you don't fit into being assertive just yet. There is still hope. But as we go through this, start to realize whether you are assertive or not. Developing your full potential, your full assertive potential, is something that you can do. As I said, don't worry if you don't feel that you are really assertive yet. You can develop your assertiveness. Human beings have the ability to improve themselves. And you do as well, just as I do. So inside everybody, there's an assertive person trying to get out. You are there. You have the ability to turn around your existing behaviour into more assertive behaviour. So what's keeping you back? When we talk about developing your assertiveness and that inside everybody there's an assertive person trying to get out, what is holding you back? It could be that fear or tension, all those things we talked about before, are holding you back. And in some ways, if it is fear or if it is tension, then there's something you can do. You can just simply relax first and try to control your tension. When you control your tension, you will also control the possibilities of outbursts and maybe some anger that's inside you and then aggressive behavior that comes out. So just relax. As you can see here, we have somebody who's flat on their back relaxing. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. But what I'm saying to you is just calm down. Try to calm yourself down and relax. Gather your thoughts so you can become a little bit more confident. Now that's easier said than done, but there are techniques that you can try to use that will help you to relax. If tension is building up, begin to start to breathe slowly. You can breathe in and breathe out. And when you inhale, you can count up to 10 or begin counting down from 10. And then exhale and repeat. It's just a slow breathing exercise that calms the nerves, calms you down, so it gives you time to think clearly and gather yourself, so you become a little bit more confident in trying to speak out. Sometimes actually you can count up to 10, as I said, or you can count down from 10. It depends on you. Some people, when they count up to 10, feel that that's not really relieving stress because they're building up to something. It depends on your mind and the way you see things. If you count down from 10, it's more of a slower sort of diminishing process. You're not building up to something, you're going down to something. So that may relieve tension for some people as well. It's up to you. So relax and try to get a control of yourself, control of your emotions. When you do become confronted with a problem and you're trying to be assertive about how you handle that problem and communicate assertively, the first thing is to calm down, and next thing is to control your emotions. Try to look at ways to solve the problem rather than add to the problem. Don't try to magnify or make even bigger the problem. Try to be assertive in solving the problem that you've got. And you can do this by reaching for logic. Look very carefully at the situation and make sure you have a handle, we say, a grip on all the facts. Get to know what the facts are. When you've been able to breathe a little bit more calmly, slow yourself down, you begin to think of the facts. So look to see if you are in fact also contributing to the situation by getting angry or losing your temper. So start to look for the facts. Sometimes when people are facing problems, trying to decide what to do, whether I'll do it or not, or procrastinating, will only make things worse. So if you keep your frustrations inside, they could end up with big explosions, and that would make more of a problem for you than the original situation. So try to keep a lid on things. Try to open up and assertively handle the situation. Don't take things so hard as well. Don't be too hard on yourself, in other words. You know, these things are a bit difficult to handle, and you will get through it if you encourage yourself to be able to get through it. Try to keep your perspective and don't take things too personally. Don't blame yourself, in other words. It'll only increase your emotional involvement and prevent you from being able to resolve the situation. Don't blame yourself. Don't kick yourself in the heels. Just try to get on with solving the situation. Deal with the situation immediately if you can. Listen carefully, of course. As I said, sort out the facts from the emotional content and avoid being defensive. Being defensive is one way, sure, that's going to bring you into hot water and make the situation more of a problem. Ask questions all the time, as we said before, and also, if somebody does bring a problem to you, compliment that person. Thank them, actually, for having the courage to bring it to your attention. Don't shout at them and say, "What did you tell me that for?" Tell them, "Look, thank you for telling me that. Now I can understand that the problem is such and such." Respond calmly and clearly and try to find alternatives that will bring solutions if you can't think of any other solution at that time. If you have a grievance, if you have some issue that really is causing you concern, so what are you afraid of in trying to be assertive? The only thing you should be afraid of is missing opportunities. If you continue to worry and continue to feed passive attitudes or even aggressive attitudes, then you are going to miss a whole lot of opportunities, and that's what you should be afraid of. As a manager, an executive in business, being assertive opens up all sorts of opportunities, as you know, in your business. So if you are not assertive, then you are going to miss out on a lot of opportunities that will come your way. So, overcoming fear of being assertive. Let's make the first move together. Concentrate. Make eye contact. Be tactful and honest. That means be careful and honest. And remember who you're with and tailor your discussion according to that particular person. Don't assume they understand you all the time. You have to consider them as well. This is where your interpersonal skills are really going to come into play. You are going to avoid misunderstanding, which can lead to frustration if you are assertive. And remember, being assertive means being open and direct. So, are your requests reasonable? Are your requests easy to understand? And are you sure you know what you want from other people? You really have to know what you are asking for. So the key is to communication. The key is to more assertive communication and to more power and confidence. Come with verbal, non-verbal, and written communication. You can have very powerful verbal communication if you are assertive. So, as I mentioned before, avoid things like saying or quite a lot in your conversation. You may end up saying them. Sometimes we are human and we do make these little mistakes, but if you continue to do them all the time, that leads people to think that you don't really know what you're talking about or you're not so confident. Perhaps, too, you can prevent the use of words like little, only, and just. Sometimes these tend to diminish the meaning of something. They lessen the meaning of something. So they're not very powerful words. So choose your words carefully when you're trying to communicate assertively. Don't use I'm sorry if you're not sincere about the situation, or indeed if you don't really have to say sorry. If the situation doesn't require you to say sorry, then don't. But I quite often hear people say I'm sorry when actually they don't need to say that at all. It's become a habit that they've said I'm sorry, or they feel that they should. They feel that they don't want to upset the other person. But actually sometimes we say I'm sorry and we don't really know why we're saying it. And as a very good key to verbal communication, always keep in mind your tone and your volume. And think about how others may perceive you. Think about what other people think of you and by the sound of your voice. Keep these things in mind, and in verbal communication they are very, very essential. We've gone through this before in parts of our program in communication, but here I'm just focusing on it again. To be assertive requires you to start changing the way that you communicate. Non-verbal communication as well has several key points to it. So you do need to be aware of your body language. Assertive body language is confident body language, positive body language. If you have a very good posture, meaning if you hold your body well and you don't slouch or you don't lean or bend over unnecessarily, then that means you have good posture. And people look at you and they would think, oh, she looks fairly smart. She seems to know what she's doing. People gain impressions from what they see. Also, with non-verbal communication, and this is a key, make sure that there is comfortable space between you and the other person that you're communicating with. Space between you, physical space. Don't let somebody stand right close to you that you can hear them breathing, or they're breathing very closely to you. That's not comfortable. And that's not assertive body language either. The other part to communication is written communication. And in any written communication, if you want to be assertive, be concise and clear. Be specific and use simple language so that the other person can understand, and use active voice when writing. Remember to be inclusive and be aware of your audience. These are very simple rules to follow. But we often wonder how to be assertive. We don't really start to look back at the simple basics. The basics of communication can help us to be more assertive if we try to enhance and expand on those basics. You have been communicating all your life, all of your career. So now it's time for you to stop, to sit back, and to take a look at the way you communicate. So, listening well, controlling your emotions, and letting people know how you feel are other aspects of good communication, as are making assertive statements. If you are assertive, you are also an active listener. And that means that you have to contribute more to the listening process. You are not just hearing the conversation. And there are several steps that you can take to actually actively listen. First step you could do is to paraphrase what the speaker has said, meaning summarize it a little bit and say it back to them. Not in a way that sounds ridiculous, not in a way that looks stupid, but just in an inquiring way to try to make sure that they have realized that you have heard them. Next up, maintain that eye contact and verbally encourage the speaker using encouraging looks, giving them a positive look that makes them want to say something more. And next you can ask clarifying questions or try to get more information through open-ended questions. We went through questioning in a previous part in our communication program, and those types of questions are very valuable if you are trying to be assertive. Controlling your emotions, breathe, relax, remain calm. And realize that demonstrations of anger are never appropriate. No one likes them. No one likes to see you storm around the meeting room, throwing things on the table. No one likes to see that. It does not go well for you as a manager. It doesn't go well for anyone in a professional workplace environment. And also, don't judge. Don't blame. Be quite neutral in some respects if you can. Of course, some instances will require that you are a little bit more meaningful when you say things, but try not to judge too much. Consider the other person. This is where empathy comes into place. Consider the other person's viewpoint and their emotions. When you do that, you are being very empathic, and this is a very good quality, a very good competency to have in assertive communication. And don't accuse people. Don't make accusations and placing blame where it is not really necessary. That is a negative reaction. That is a negative impulse that will actually bring you towards the end of a dead-end road. There is no solution sometimes when that happens. The only solution is people will walk away and you have to start all over again with your communication. Check yourself before you say something else that you might regret later on. You know, many times in our lives we say, why did I do that? Why did I say that to her? Why did you let me say that? We know that we end up in deep water or hot water when we've done something so quickly because our emotions have run away with us. This is not being assertive. We are just acting on impulse, and we regret it later on. We are sorry for it later on, but sometimes it is too late and the damage is done. So controlling your emotions is a very important part of being assertive in communication. So do you have trouble saying no? If you want to be assertive, you do have to know how to say no. You do have to be able to express no and bring bad news. So when you are listening to somebody, listen very carefully and make sure you understand everything completely before coming to a very hasty conclusion. Ask questions if you need to find out more before you answer. Sometimes it may be that you can say no and you don't really need to justify your decision. Perhaps the situation has meant that you can, of course, just say no. But if you start to try to justify your decision, then that's really unnecessary conversation. That may be the case at some times. If you do want to say no and you feel justified, then give the reasons for your refusal. Explain why. Explain the details. If you don't give a reason, you may be seen as being uncooperative or being rather hostile. So a clear and honest reason will be enough. You don't need to argue, or you don't need to go on in a long explanation. Just give the simple reason as to why you are saying no. So we see that some situations will require that you only just say no and you don't need to justify. Other situations will mean that yes, you do need to give a reason. So give it clearly and give it honestly. Indeed, when you might also have to say no, offer to find an alternative. Let the other party know that you'll try to help them, but you're unable to perform the entire request. So perhaps you have to say no to some part of the request, but there may be another alternative to the other part of the request. Always come up with options. Always come up with other ways to solve the problem. There is another part to assertive behavior, and this is using the I statement. And there are three parts to the I statement. Of course, we see the behavior first, then we see the effect, and then we see the feelings that come around from that behavior. So let's look at the behavior part of the I statement first. Here, we're going to talk about what it is exactly that the other person has done or is doing. So this is the first part of the I statement. Next, we see the effect. We see the second part of the I statement where you explain what is happening because of their behavior. And thirdly, we see what the feelings are, what effect the behavior has on your feelings. This is the component, or these are the three components to the I statement. While remaining cool, while remaining calm and collected, you try to explain your point of view. So you use terms like, I feel that your behavior the other day when you slammed the door in my face caused me to feel very, very shocked and very, very hurt. It caused a lot of people in the office to be very, very upset. And that really brought me concern as well, so much that I really am not sure whether I want to work here anymore. I feel really quite uncertain as to whether I want to work here anymore with you. For example, that is using an I statement, using terms like I feel and I think in your I statement, letting other people know how you feel, rather than it should be or it must be. Describe your wants, your needs, and your intentions clearly to other people. Use terms like I want, I need, I plan to. These are other parts of the I statement. And this means that you are asserting yourself. It's not a selfish kind of statement. It's you talking about what your feelings and what your considerations and ideas are. It's demonstrating ownership of who you are and ownership of the feeling. There are just a couple of more tips that I'd like to run through with you in assertive communication. And I'm sure that you'll agree with me when I say that sometimes communicating a request for change to somebody else is probably one of the hardest tasks to do for a person if you are trying to be assertive. Trying to tell somebody that a change is going to happen. Trying to let people know that things are not going to be the same. Because people don't like change normally. So communicating change can be a little bit difficult if you are new to being assertive. So using the following technique may help you get through these first tough spots when it comes to difficult situations. You really do need to describe the situation first. Really have it clear in your mind what that situation is. And then you need to express your feelings on the subject. Let the other person know what you feel about it. Third step, you may then ask what kind of behavior or what kind of change you want in the behavior. And then 4, state the positive consequences of the changed behavior. This template is a guide as to how you might be able to handle situations where you've got to request change from somebody. Sometimes these situations, as I said, are a little bit sticky or difficult. So if you have a clear guideline, steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you can obviously try to work through it in a much smoother fashion. So the method that you use to request change from somebody should include the following 6 things. It should be that there is a good chance that the person you are requesting change from will in fact change. It should be that you will not violate the rights of the other person, and that you will not belittle them or discount their value or their worth. It should be so that you will not damage your relationship with that person that you are requesting change from. And it should be that you will not lessen the motivation or the desires of that person. Sometimes people want to give up and don't want to continue. If you don't communicate correctly, change to somebody. And in communicating change, you should not be defensive, and you should ensure and make it part of your guideline that you will not be defensive when you initiate change or communicate change. People are very afraid of change, as I said. So this is where you do have to use assertive communication. Not passive, not aggressive, but assertive communication. Considering the points of view of the other person and taking them through the process step by step by step, as we have done here in this model. All along the way, in trying to be assertive, don't get mad. This is a very important thing. Anger, you know, can be a very, very demoralizing thing. Anger can cause great upsets and can turn upside down all of the work that you've done previously, and you have to then do things again. So anger, it may seem like it's a quick fix, and in minor situations, in a minority, of situations, anger may work well. But generally speaking, anger does not. It will get you, we say, nowhere very quickly. It will get you nowhere fast. And yelling until you are, we say, blue in the face, will only backfire on you. People will consider you as a screamer. People will think that you have no control whatsoever. People will not want to come and see you. People will not want to come and meet you and talk to you. You are the manager. You are their boss. You want people to come to you. So therefore, you have to tone down the way that you handle yourself if you tend to be aggressive, if you tend to lose your temper and get mad. So what I'm saying here to you and suggesting here to you is, don't get mad. Assertiveness is more than courage. Assertiveness is about a lot of other things. Assertiveness certainly is about setting limits, about knowing what you're going to pull back from, where you're actually going to stop. And assertiveness is also about expressing your feelings. They might seem to be two conflicting things, but they certainly are part of the assertiveness equation. And also understand that no in assertiveness is not a dirty word. No is a good word. If something, however, makes you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel that the request is unreasonable, then it is your prerogative to refuse, and you should say no. So learn to put no in your vocabulary. If this is some way that you need to improve upon, then please put no into your vocabulary. You are not saying no to the whole person, but only to part of the relationship which makes you feel uncomfortable. No sometimes, in certain situations, as I said, does not require an explanation. So, when we look at assertive communication, please try not to go down the passive or aggressive road. Here we see a freeway. And actually, every day of your life, in some ways, you are riding the communication freeway. Here you are on this roadway. And this path that you're taking will mean that there may be several lanes involved or several directions you wish to go in. You can take the passive path or the aggressive path if you wish, but those laneways are really not going to take you to your correct destination. The one that will take you to your correct destination is the assertive roadway, the assertive freeway. So that is the road you need to take. Use really good communication to transmit all your requests and all your feelings. And good communication means assertive communication. We often find that when we meet people and when we talk to people, either one-on-one or in a meeting or whatever the situation may be, that first impressions count so much. People will come away from you with the feeling or the thought of you from the very first moment they met you. They will gauge and measure you from the very few seconds or few moments that they met you. So it's very, very important that you have about you a good look, good posture, good body language. And slouching or avoiding eye contact and showing other mannerisms that are not so attractive can show a lack of self-confidence. And that means you're not very assertive. So just bear in mind that the first time someone sees you is probably going to have the most lasting impression on that person. They'll remember you mostly from when the first few moments that they saw you and listened to you and talked to you. So you have to be very aware of your image, of yourself, of all the things about you. This kind of self-presentation, if you slouch, if you are negative, if you don't give good eye contact, can create a cycle of non-assertive behavior. And you get used to it. It becomes your habit. You are like that all the time, and people get to know you as being that negative, non-assertive person. So first impressions about how you look and how you appear are very, very powerful. So you need to keep up your appearances. You need to always stand up straight, walk the talk, we say. Look other people in the eye. Be proud of who you are. Consider the way you present yourself and really have a powerful self-image. Sometimes we walk around, sometimes if we could actually see ourselves in a mirror, we may actually be quite shocked. If you find yourself walking, let's say for example in a department store some days, and if you catch a glimpse of yourself walking in a full-length mirror, I mean these happen, they exist in shopping malls or they exist in different places. Just take a look at yourself. You know, you might actually get a shock to see the way that you're walking, to see your behavior. And you might come away thinking, oh my goodness, is that me? Do I really look like that? I don't look very good. I don't sound very strong. I don't sound confident. You know, take a good look at yourself. Keep up your appearances. Really do get to know that people see you and they see everything about you. So your first impressions are very, very important. And you do need to have due regard for the way you hold yourself. You know, it's a two-way road. Communication and assertive communication is not any different. If people are actually avoiding your gaze, then maybe you might be coming on too strongly. Sometimes we don't really understand why people are not looking at us, but it takes two to tango, we say. So be aware of the physical responses of other people and start to think about yourself. Maybe it's not the other person who is at fault. It could be that you also are a little bit at fault here. You may be speaking too quickly. You may be talking too loudly. You may be throwing too much information at somebody. And you may be staring rather than looking at someone. So think of these things. There are two of you in the conversation, just like there are two people here in this car going along the road. There are two people in a conversation normally. So consider that and realize that the other person's responses may be actually due to you. So take the first step of many in order to change yourself here. If you don't like the way you feel when you behave a certain way, then know that you have to change it. Really, this is very, very important. It's no good saying, oh, I'm like this because, and I don't think I can change myself. Well, that's not very true, and that's a very weak excuse. You can control your behavior. You are the one that can take the first step and the second, third, and fourth step. The only behavior you can control is your own. You can't really control other people's behaviors. They have their own ways of controlling their behaviors, just like you do. So, you have the power to change the way you are and the way you behave. So that's where it is right now. If you wish to be more assertive, then you have the power to do that, and only you to change that. There's a very worthwhile quote that I'd like to read here for you, and this is very, very true. It's quite simple. It means that everything starts with the first step, and the journey that you are going to go on in changing yourself is like this one that is a Chinese proverb. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's going to take 1,000 miles or the length of a 1,000-mile journey to be able to change your behavior. But what this means is that everything starts to change from the first step that you take. So this is up to you. Are you going to take the first step to change your behavior? If it's passive or aggressive or not as assertive as you wish it to be, you need to take the very first step. Remember, and this is a very, very strong reminder to you, assertiveness equals what we can term personal authority. Personal authority is the confidence you have in your skills, the confidence you have in your abilities and capabilities, all of the things that you can do. So, personal authority is partly the confidence in your skills. It is also the sense of purpose you have about your life and what you want to do. Who you are, where you're going, what you want to achieve, your sense of purpose, your reason for being. It is also about how much commitment you have to your goals, how much dedication you have to achieving the things you want to achieve. So, assertiveness equals all of these very positive things. So it is up to you to look at yourself and realize whether you have those things in yourself, whether you do have a certain level of personal authority. The way to begin to making the changes to your behavior and to your assertive communication, which goes hand in hand with behavior, is to start out small. Change is always a gradual thing. If you begin by trying to make enormous changes in the way you do things, chances are that you might fail. And when you fail, you fall down and you lose confidence. And when you lose confidence, it's very hard to pick yourself up and to start again. So the steps here are to manage what you can manage comfortably at first, then move up to greater challenges. When we were growing up, when we were just little, when we were toddlers and infants, we learned to walk by taking just the very first step, the very first small step. That first small step was crawling on all of our hands and knees, our two hands and our two knees. We crawled on all fours, we say. And when we got a little bit more confident at that, we started to stand up. We stood up and then we held the hands of our parents and we moved along slowly and cautiously on our two little feet. Later, we were able to let go of the hands of our parents and walk by ourselves on our 2 feet, slowly, and maybe we were a little bit wobbly. We walked, and then suddenly we were able to walk a bit faster and take faster and more steps. Now, what would happen if we fell down? If we tried to, instead of crawl first, we tried to stand up and walk. Bang! We fell down on our bottoms, on our knees, and we started to cry. And then it was harder and harder to pick ourselves up and start again. This is what we mean by mastering what you can manage comfortably at first, then move up to greater challenges. Change is always gradual. Learning new things is gradual. It's not immediate. It comes step by step, one thing at a time. But it's not impossible either. It is never impossible to change your behavior. It's just a gradual process, and it's something that you have to change. You are the one, not me, not your boss, not your teacher, not your friend or colleague, but you. You are the one, with support from other people, who can start to change behaviors. So, you can change your habits, as I have said. Identify what you want to change about yourself. That is the thing. Identify them and really set that goal. Pinpoint. Try to be specific. Try to underline the most important thing you want to change first, and then begin with that. Set the goal. The goal means how you want to change it, when you want to change it, why you want to change it. Set the clear goals about that change. If you want to be more assertive, and I suppose we think here that this is what we want you to do, perhaps you want to be more confident. Confidence is a very big part of being assertive. So, all right, you have identified you want to be more confident. Set a goal. When do you want to achieve that by? How do you want to achieve it? With whom do you want to achieve it? In what particular area do you want to be more confident? Next up, control your fears and anxieties. Try to take charge of your fears and your nervousness and your anxiousness. You need to exercise some control and push yourself forward and tell yourself you're going to be able to do these things. Number 4, aim for a success that is manageable at first. As I said, don't try to overwhelm yourself with too much to take on at once. Make it manageable. Point number 5, in trying to be assertive and more confident, if that is what you want to improve, then monitor your progress. Measure it. Try to actually show yourself. Write down in a diary, perhaps, from one week to the next, what you accomplished this week, how you accomplished something more in your goal the next week, and so forth and so forth. Keep a record to monitor it. Some people do this, for example, with simply losing weight. Day 1, how much do you weigh? What do you want to lose in terms of kilos, and you map how you're doing that with a certain kind of diet. And then you progress week by week, and you measure your weight as you progress along in trying to reach that goal and lose weight. So as you lose weight, and hopefully you do lose weight, even though you might have some failures, if you keep progressively losing weight, you can see when you write it down and keep a record that builds up your motivation. That helps you show yourself, hey, this is working. I am being able to do this. And therefore you take the next step more confidently and you become better at reaching your goal. It's the same to be said of trying to be assertive. Learn to see how you can be rewarding when you assert yourself properly. When something good happens at the end of your assertive behavior, then keep a record of that and monitor it and show yourself, hey, that is really good. That technique works really well. I'm going to use that technique more and more so I can become more assertive. And practice, practice, practice. As you have written the ways you're applying your new behaviors down, or as you have tried to apply them with some role plays or some actual examples, practice them all the time. Practice makes perfect. Assertiveness is a behavior that can be changed. And when you change different ways of your behavior, like controlling your temper, for example, and practice it, chances are you will reach that goal of changing your behavior that you have set. So never lose sight of your goal. And remember that keeping up with it, monitoring it along the way is a lifelong commitment. It's not something that you can walk away and forget and think you've just done it and it will always be there. Sometimes you have to persevere and you have to do these things for life because habits are difficult to change. We've had them for many, many, many years. We have impacted on them because through our behavior and habits, they have become embedded in some ways in us. So we need to lose them. We need to get rid of them with practice, practice, practice. I do hope that you can begin to change your unassertive behavior, that you can look at the levels in which you need to improve. There's a quote here from Francis Bacon, and this quote says that natural abilities are like natural plants. They need pruning by study. So just as we see a beautiful plant growing, a beautiful camellia perhaps growing, or a beautiful bush with lovely flowers growing, we do need to prune it. And we need to look at it. We need to nurture it. We need to cradle it and embrace it so that it will grow more beautifully into a beautiful plant. And role play is also the thing. A good way to try to enforce what you have learned is to role play. As I said, practice, practice, practice. Practice and feedback are essential to discovering your strong points and your weaknesses or limitations. So role play is a very, very good way to do this. And if you want to, you can role play with a colleague or role play with a friend or somebody who is seriously supporting you in trying to change your behavior. Perhaps you have a mentor, perhaps your boss indeed can help you and help you go through some role play in trying to improve your unassertive behavior. It gives you a chance to try out your skills that you're trying to change in a very supportive forum. If you are hesitant, then really talk this through with someone who is close to you and see if they can help you. And there's one thing I'd like to mention here too. Everybody has a comfort zone. And this is a level of comfort where we feel that we are okay with who we are, and it's the degree to which we feel comfortable in a situation. We all have our comfort zone, and we stay inside the boundaries of our comfort zone. If you start to feel uncomfortable, always speak up. If you feel that your comfort zone is being encroached upon, always speak up and take appropriate action. There are lots of things happening around us, and sometimes when you're trying to be assertive, you've got to come out of that comfort zone, trying to build up your qualities, build up your capabilities. But whenever you feel that it's getting a little bit difficult, always speak up and then try to rectify the situation and start to feel comfortable again. Don't ever feel that you should be threatened in any way. Now we have a time for the diagnostic. This is a time to see how assertive your behavior is, how you are with your behavior. And knowing where you are personally can really help you measure how far you've come and how much further you have to go. So, as I've said throughout all of our programs, really take a long, hard look at yourself. In the beginning of our assertiveness communication program, I've asked you to think of yourself all the way through. Ask questions all the time. Do you fit this? Are you that? Etc. So now we're going to take a look at the action plan that you need to perhaps begin to draw up in order to improve your skills. What are you going to take action on? What are you going to take action on first? Do you know? Have you finally made any decisions about what you should do, what you should take action on? Start with the easiest items first. Pick the 3 easiest things that you want to act on first. Then you can be sure that you'll be able to take those steps that we talked about to get to the next step, which might be a little bit harder. Here are some action steps that you can look to do and work on. When you have time to yourself, it would be good if you could sit down and go through these things one by one. And take a few pieces of paper to do it. Sit away somewhere quietly and contemplate. Think to yourself. Sit down and list the specific behaviors that you really want to change. We're looking here at communication and assertive communication, and as you now understand, there are many behaviors that come along with that. Remember the 6 personality types. Maybe you are one of those, and you're not very happy about that. You could be the mute, for example, the person who doesn't say anything. So therefore, you have a lot of behaviors that you need to list. Next up, be as systematic as possible. Try to be methodical, go through things in a very reasonable approach. This will lead to this, will lead to this, will lead to this. That way you may not get so confused, and you may not feel so overwhelmed. Next up, rank the behaviors in terms of their complexity or degree of difficulty. As I said, list the easiest things that you need to work on first. So rank them. What is the easiest behavior that you want to look at as opposed to the next hardest and the hardest and the hardest? So you will be able to start then with at least one. Rank them also in terms of chronological order. What comes first, second, and third? What is difficult behavior? What is a difficult and complex behavior? And whether that behavior comes first, second, or third in how you want to act on it. Begin with the easiest behavior or the least difficult behavior to change. Behaviors are not easy to change. So start with the least difficult behavior and then go to the next degree. It could be that you need to break difficult behavior into several smaller behaviors. Try not to take one behavior, which could be a whole huge behavior. For example, being or losing your temper. That is a difficult behavior. Having a hot temper is a very difficult behavior, and there are many smaller behaviors inside that. It could be the smaller behaviors are shouting and screaming. Next one, throwing things on a table. Next one, walking out of a room. There you are. There are 3 smaller behaviours within that one very difficult behaviour. So that's what we mean by break down a difficult behaviour into several smaller ones. That means you're breaking it down into smaller, achievable goals. It's important too, in your action steps, that you attach time limits to each behaviour. You've got to set some time frame by which you think you might be able to have taken step A, B, C, for example. Otherwise, you're not setting a very tangible goal. You're setting something that's a bit unrealistic, or it's a bit invisible. You need to make a statement to yourself and a commitment to yourself about the time frame in which you're going to try to change that behaviour. In your action steps that you take, when you start to repeat and practice, then make sure you repeat until you have mastered it. Don't give up halfway. Don't stop and say, oh, I think that's okay. I think I'm all right with that now. Continue, continue, continue until you have mastered that change. That's the important thing. And ask people around you whether they consider that you have reached that stage. In your action steps as well, review all previous behaviours. Really look back at yourself. Review your behaviours. Take a cold, hard look at yourself. Long, hard look at yourself. Advance to the next most difficult behaviour after you've taken the first one, of course, that goes without saying, and measure and evaluate. You can measure and evaluate through getting feedback from other people or keeping a chart as well by yourself, but that's self-evaluation. You do need to have other people giving you feedback as well. That's very, very valuable, and it has to be honest. Keep records, visual records preferably, that are easier to see, easy to understand, quick to see, rather than lots of details, long lists of things. Try to keep visual records of the changes you have made. Coming to the last 3 parts of your action steps and ways to help you take action steps, reinforce your efforts through reward and encouragement. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult, and so you need to celebrate actually when you do achieve, even if it's a part of your goal or a small part of the step that you're trying to take. So reinforce through reward, and also instead of punishing yourself and when times don't work out or when things don't work as well as you think, just encourage yourself rather than punish. Strong, positive encouragement and support are the ways to reinforce and strengthen your abilities. Action steps also include using visual reminders. Stick up charts and pictures and things of what you want to achieve. Put them up on the fridge or stick them up on the notice board in the office, or put things around the place that are a visual reminder of the things you're trying to change about your assertive communication or your assertive behaviour. And remember, as I have said previously in this final part of our program, a small goal is a very good place to start. You have to start somewhere. So instead of starting at the top of the mountain, start somewhere near the base, knowing where you can climb up the rocks of the mountain step by step, little by little, but at least you feel comfortable and that you feel good about starting to change your behaviour from that point. I do hope that in this program on assertive communication that you have really fully understood what being assertive is all about. And I think that it's very important that you take what you have from these action steps and you begin to work on them. Not starting from next week, but how about starting from today, if there's still any time left in the day, or beginning tomorrow. The sooner you begin to put things in place, your plans and your action steps in place, then that means you're going to work towards achieving those steps and taking them on the roadway to achieving much more assertive communication. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.